Hi, Chris Gunkle here, and one question I get from a lot of people who are thinking about writing a book is just how long does my book need to be? And before we dive into it, I just want us to recognize that the publishing industry has hit puberty and is going through a lot of changes. With all the technology out there and with the advancements in self-publishing and platforms like the Kindle platform and other self-publishing platforms and e-readers and that sort of stuff, it's really changed the pace of publishing. And the traditional model is pretty old. In fact, you can go and take a couple of years to write your book and get that pushed out there, and by the time it's out there, it can already be outdated. Now, that's not to say that the traditional publishing model isn't right for some things, it's just not right for a lot of things. Okay, so now to answer your question. Typically, with most pieces of content, I recommend a shorter is better approach. Make it easy to read, easy to digest, easy to implement. So if you're watching me, probably you're writing a nonfiction book and your audience is trying to get some information out of it so they can apply that information and make their business or make their life a little bit better. So what I suggest is make that book only as long as it needs to be. Cut out all the fluff, get to the point, give them the information, and make it actionable so they can go and use it right away. So one example of not taking that approach is a book that I read not that long ago. Now, this book was 224 pages, which is fine. I read a lot of books, so it's okay. But really, it could have been just a few pages, if that. In fact, I was at a mastermind meeting, and one of the guys there basically summed the whole book up in one sentence. Now, I won't tell you what the book is, because I want to protect the innocent, but let's just say I'm not recommending that book to anybody, and I'm probably not going to read it again. It was mostly fluff. And really the only reason that I can think of why they would make the book that long is because they were going with the traditional publisher and they wanted to have a book that was over 200 pages because that's what a real book is. But you have to ask yourself, did that book serve its purpose? I'd say it kind of did. It had some good information in it. It was just way too long and it's kind of a turn-off and I don't want to go back and read it again. Now the next thing to keep in mind is the attention span of the average person. But, sorry about that. You know, most people don't even finish reading all the books that they start. In fact, there's a professor at the University of Wisconsin, so you know he's smart coming from Wisconsin, and he did a study to find out just how many books actually get read to completion. Now, I won't get into all the details of the study here or anything. It's not super scientific, but basically he was able to tap into Kindle and see about how far people read on a lot of books. And even some of the greatest books ever written weren't ever completed. So let's take Catching Fire, for instance. That's the second in the Hunger Games trilogy. A pretty popular book, I think you would agree with me. Yet most people stopped 43% of the way through the book. They didn't even read half of it. And if you think that's bad, 12 Years a Slave and The Great Gatsby, they came in at only 28%. So some of the greatest books ever written can't even get read from beginning to end by most people. Do you really think it's worth taking your book and stretching it out to 200 or 250 pages just to stroke your ego? So my suggestion, instead of writing some big monster book, is to write a bunch of shorter books. So if you take that big book and you cut it up into smaller pieces, they're more easily digestible, easier to consume, easier to take action on. So you can publish multiple shorter books and get those out to your audience. And then they have more choices for what information they want to consume and when they want to consume it. And when they're ready, when they've taken that and put it to work, they can come back for more. The other cool thing is that if you publish that book on Kindle, you can price it at $2.99, which makes it really easy for anybody to buy the book, and you still keep 70% of the profits from it. So not only do short books make it easier for people to buy your books and consume your content, it makes it easier for you to write. So think about it. If you want a big, long book, you have to sit down and crank out 50,000 to 75,000 words. Doesn't exactly sound easy, and that's why most people never finish their book. But if you have to sit down and write 8 to 10,000 words, let's say, that's not quite so daunting, and you can crank that out in a month just in your spare time. So instead of taking 2 or 3 years to get your book finished and go through editing and get it published and have it outdated by the time you get it out there, you could easily write 10 to 15 shorter books, get those out to the market in a timely manner, get people consuming those books, and also build your audience. So what's your take? Do you prefer the traditional route of one longer book, or do you prefer multiple shorter books? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.